Hi, this is David Dickens, and today we're going to do a couple of listener questions, one of my favorite types of episodes. So we've got Colin, who is questioning inheritance tax and estate taxes in his future, and if he might do something like a big insurance policy to help his heirs by leaving some tax-free money to them. And then Simon is getting ready to retire. He's got almost all of his money in 401ks and IRAs, and he's just wondering if there's something he should be doing to lessen his tax burden. We will walk through each of those, hopefully something in there that is of significant interest to you. So I'll go get Walter, and we'll get started.
It's another episode of Cover Your Assets KC. I'm Walter Storholt, alongside, of course, the president and wealth advisor of Creative One Advisors Group, David Dickens, serving you in the Overland Park, Kansas City areas and beyond. And David, a listener question episode today, so this should be fun to dive into these two questions on the docket. But before all that, happy May to you as we've turned the page another month and the year's flying by.
Isn't that amazing? How did we already burn off 4 months out of the year?
I'm sure you've been pretty busy lately. There's been a lot of news in the financial world and the economy and, just obviously sparked a lot by politics and things like that. So I'm sure that that's one of the reasons why it's flown by so fast. You've been a busy man.
Yeah, our new president has certainly been on the leading edge of creating a lot of news over the last 6 or 8 weeks, which is fun for me. I mean, it's the kind of stuff I love to read about, hear about, think about. So it's been a pretty good first 4 months of the year for me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the investor might get a little nervous, but you're at least, as in terms of your job, your role, your responsibility in helping them, this creates work and excitement to deal with and navigate and figure out problems and calm people down maybe and make adjustments where necessary and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I always try to look for, history doesn't repeat itself, but oftentimes it rhymes. So you're kind of looking for patterns. Well, is this more like the COVID downturn, which was event-driven, or is it more like the 2008 downturn, which was just a big, economic cancer in the U.S. system? So it's been really fun, and I'm guessing this turmoil is going to last at least a couple more months, so we got more fun ahead of us.
Yeah, it's kind of like doing podcasting. There's 1,000 things that can go wrong when you're trying to tape an episode, but usually the same mistake or the same issue never happens twice. So you're just finding constantly new things to learn. I feel like that's like that with market downturns. It's like you saying they rhyme. It's like never the exact same scenario. Sure would be nice because then you say, oh, we've been through this before, this exact thing. But it's always a little bit different. You got to tweak and adjust. So this will be good. And we've got some questions that don't necessarily deal with exactly what's happening at this moment in the economy. So I don't know, maybe people will like a little bit of a break from the sudden and immediate concerns, and we can zoom out a little bit, at least on a portion of these questions. You teased it. We've got Colin and then Simon on deck today. So let's dive into Colin's question first. Colin says, I'm worried about what might happen with inheritance and estate taxes in the future, and I'm considering purchasing a sizable life insurance policy that would leave tax-free money to my kids. What are the downsides of this idea?
Yeah, so Colin has asked a really good question. What we don't know is Colin's actual financial circumstances. So I have a lot of clients that come in and say, hey, I'm worried about estate taxes. And they don't have an estate tax problem. So I want to do a real quick level set here to say that in America right now, under the current tax law, if you have just under $14 million, let's just round up, $14 million or less, your heirs are not going to pay any inheritance or estate taxes. And your spouse, if you have one, also gets $14 million. So if you're married, your heirs can inherit $28 million worth of assets and not owe a penny of estate tax on the federal level. And most taxes, Missouri and Kansas included, don't have a state inheritance tax. Perhaps what Colin is wondering is, if the Trump tax cuts do not get extended by this Congress before December of this year, then that $28 million number is going to be cut in half. And maybe that's Colin's problem. He's saying, well, I don't have 28 million, but I got more than 14 million. So what do I do about that problem? And he might just misunderstand the estate tax laws. So I'm going to cover a little bit of both, because I think the vast majority of our listeners do not have a $28 million estate tax problem. I only have a couple of clients that do. So a lot of times, people that have an estate tax problem are people that own, let's say, a really big small business. And their kids, for instance, are going to inherit this business. And it's worth more than 28 million bucks. And so they are going to owe estate taxes. And what Colin has said is, maybe I should buy a sizable life insurance policy, because when the proceeds come to the heirs, that money's coming tax-free and it's totally liquid. So they don't have to borrow against the company or bring in investors or sell off a part of the company. And that's really important. So Colin, if that was your problem that you're trying to solve, the downsides of that idea are, well, there's going to be, certainly there's a cost to that life insurance policy, and it can be significant. You obviously need to make sure that you are insurable, that you don't have a long history of, well, even heart disease. There are ways to make an insurance policy work, but you want to, it's a lot easier and cheaper if you're insurable. You need permanent insurance, not term insurance, and almost certainly not an index universal life or an IUL type policy, because those premiums increase each year as you get older. And if you live to, in your mid to late 80s or 90s, that premium is going to be almost unbearable. So you want to make sure you get a permanent whole life policy where you decide on the death benefit today, and you know what the premium is going to be until you take your last breath. So hopefully, Colin, that's of help. It can be a great idea if you're insurable. You get permanent insurance. It's just a little costly depending on how long you live. But otherwise, it could be a really good idea from you. If that's the situation you're in, Colin, you need a really good estate planning attorney, and you need a really good advisor. It's almost impossible that you are that good of a do-it-yourselfer. So in this case, you should find a couple of professionals to make sure that you strap them right to your side as you're making these kinds of decisions. Now, just a couple of quickies for people who are listening to this podcast that they don't have a $28 million estate. A lot of my clients forget that they can gift $19,000 a year to anybody they want, relative, non-relative, anybody they want. $19,000 this year, it goes up every year. And you don't have to tell anybody. You don't have to tell the IRS. It doesn't count against any estate taxes you may owe in the future. And if you have a spouse, they can give 19 grand too. So let's say that you have an estate that's maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 million, and you don't want your kids to have to wait till you die to get it. You can gift them 19 grand here, 19 grand next year. Your spouse can do another 19 grand. So that's a way to peel off, say, 38 grand per kid per year in gifts that you don't have to tell anybody about. There are a couple of other things. If you're under that 28 million, or as an individual, $14 million limit, the money that you leave to your heirs is likely not, it's very possible that a bunch of it's not going to be taxed to them. Outside of inheritance taxes, let's say, for instance, if you leave IRAs, well, within 10 years of your death, they're going to have to take all of that money out, and that's going to be fully taxable like it was income to them. That's just a rule, unlikely to change, but it could. If you leave Roth IRAs, well, that's tax-free to them, but they still have to take it out within 10 years. If you own some annuities that are not IRAs, the interest that is accruing on those that you haven't taken out, well, that's going to be taxable to somebody, either to you or to the people who inherit those annuities. And that's going to be taxed as ordinary income, not as long-term capital gains. So that's kind of one of the downsides of annuities, is they don't get a very good tax treatment. But let's just say that you have a nice, big, juicy stock portfolio, $2, $3, $4 million worth, and you've got 2 or 3 or 4 kids, and they are the beneficiaries. And let's just say that you paid $2 million for the stocks that are now worth $5 million. If you sell those stocks today, you're going to pay taxes on that $3 million of gains. But if your kids inherit that portfolio, they're going to inherit it owing 0 tax on all of those gains. It's just called the stepped up cost basis at death. So those are a couple of things in case Colin didn't know that he had to have more than 14 million on his own or 28 million with a spouse, in case his estate is less than that. Those are a couple of things you would definitely want to know. In that case, you are very unlikely to need a life insurance policy to leave tax-free money to your kids, because you're probably going to leave a bunch of tax-free money to them anyway. Colin, hopefully that's of some help. If you, or frankly, anybody listening to this thing, if you have questions about inheritance and estate taxes, how much you can give away, gifting, those types of things, if you're a really good do-it-yourselfer, then be a really good do-it-yourselfer. If you need a little bit of help, people in my business just know this stuff, and it's all relatively simple. You just have to get all the building blocks in the right place. So ask some good questions of somebody you trust, but make sure that you have a comfort level as you're aging so that you have a pretty good idea how much of your money is going to go to the IRS and how much of it's going to go to your heirs.
It's a great question, and thanks for sending that one to us today, Colin. Again, if you do have those questions and want to work with a professional, or at least talk it out to see if you'd be a good fit to work with one another, David Dickens can certainly be a great resource for you at Creative One Advisors Group. All you have to do is go to the website, creativeoneadvisorsgroup.com, or you can call 913-317-1414 to get in touch as well. 913-317-1414. We've got all the information for you also listed in the description of today's show about how you can get in touch and ask these kinds of questions in a one-on-one basis. All right, let's go to another listener question. We now turn the page over to Simon. And Simon says, I'm retiring soon, and I'm worried about the fact that nearly all of my money is in 401ks and IRAs. Is there anything I can do to lessen the tax burden of this?
Yeah, so Simon, that's a pretty common situation that I see walking into my office. I mean, I have a couple of clients that, to use your words, nearly all of their money is in 401ks and IRAs, so they don't have much tax flexibility as they are taking money out of those accounts. So real quick, here's the problem set. Let's say that what Simon's talking about is, let's say you've saved $1 million for retirement, and basically it's all in your 401k at work. Maybe an IRA rollover, but it's all tax deferred. Simon's concern here is that he knows he really doesn't have $1 million IRA because the IRS has a claim on, in his case, 22% of it because he's in the 22% tax bracket. And then Missouri or Kansas, I don't know where he lives, but let's just say it's Missouri or Kansas, every penny he takes out of that 401k or that IRA, they're going to want, say, roughly a 5% bite out of it. So 27%, or $270,000 of his $1 million 401k doesn't belong to him. So for what he gets to spend in retirement, he needs to count on only $730,000, not the million. If you've saved $2 million, well, the math pretty easy. 1.4, almost 1.5 million is yours, but $500,000 or a little bit more belongs to the IRS in the state of Kansas or the state of Missouri. So let's just say, to put a finer point on it, let's say that Simon wants to take a $20,000 vacation after he retires. To cover the taxes for that $20,000 vacation, he's going to take out $27,400 because he's got to pay the taxes on the money that comes out. Let's say he wants to buy a $50,000 car. Well, he's going to need $68,500 to pay for the $50,000 car. So not knowing much more about Simon than what we do, the one thing that always comes to mind, and we also don't know how old he is, but let's just say he's retiring at maybe 67. Walter, everybody and their brother knows that required distributions start at age
72 and a half?
73, exactly.
Okay. I still have the half after all these years.
Exactly. So
it got ingrained into me, David.
It was at 70 and a half, then it was 72, now it's 73. If Simon's young enough, it could be 75 in another 9 years.
Yeah, I gave up trying to keep track.
You and everybody else, except if you happen to be in my business.
That's right.
So part of why Roth conversions can be important between, let's say, his retirement age at 67 and when required distributions start at age 73 is that once he turns age 73, let's just say that Simon has a pension, he and his wife have Social Securities, and all of a sudden he's going to have a required distribution out of his IRA and 401k accounts. Maybe he doesn't need the money, but he's still going to have to take it out. So at age 73, the math works out that he's going to take out 3.77% of those account values in the year he turns 73. And then in the next year, it's not 3.77% anymore, it's 3.92%. And then the year he turns 75, it's 4.06%. So the percentage goes up each year you get older. Whether or not a Roth conversion makes sense for Simon at age 67, 68, 69, sometime before he gets locked into required distributions. The only time a Roth, all right, so I was getting ready to make an absolute statement. And again, and Simon, this is not specific advice for you, but basically the only time that a Roth makes sense is if you're convinced that when you start taking money out of these accounts, you're going to be in the same or higher tax bracket as you are right now. Now, that could be because RMDs, required distributions, are going to kick you into a higher tax bracket. It could be because Congress looks around and says, we need some more money out of the people that actually have money, and your tax bracket is actually going to go up. Now, everybody in D.C. is saying, no, we're never going to do that. Well, okay, never's a very long time. And by the time Simon gets to be 73, his tax bracket could be higher because of something Congress did. Either way, what you would do, Simon, is if you decided that once required distributions start, once you're 73, you're going to be in even a higher tax bracket than you are right now. Then Roth conversions, a series of Roth conversions between, let's say, when you retire at 67 and when required distributions start at 73, those could make some sense for you to reduce the amount of money that you have in your 401ks and IRAs and put money into Roth. And the only price of admission for that is paying the tax now on each conversion that you do. You can convert as much as you want as long as you're willing to pay the tax bill. So, Simon, there's also, depending on your tax situation and your income situation, it's very possible that doing a Roth conversion once you're on Medicare is going to cause you to pay more for your Medicare. And that's a really specific tax that is well laid out on Google or on the IRS site. But anyway, you would want to make sure that you were comfortable with that higher Medicare cost, because that, in effect, is an additional tax as you're doing your Roth conversion. So Simon, I say this a lot, but if you're a super good DIYer, then do it yourself. You don't really need somebody like me to help you through this. But there are some unintended consequences sometimes, like, for instance, the increased tax you're going to pay on your Medicare. So if you think this is of interest and you're not a really good do-it-yourselfer, or you want to bounce it off somebody, then you should talk to somebody like me to make sure that you're thinking through this correctly, figuring out, well, how much can I afford to do each year? How much would it be smart for me to do each year? And is it really going to make a difference when I get to be 73, my required distributions start, and I'm basically locked in to a tax sequence for the rest of my life? Simon, hopefully something in there is of help to you. And if we can be of any help to you, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd be happy to walk you through the essentials.
Great depth on both of these questions, David. Thank you, Colin and Simon, for sending us those inquiries today. You can also submit questions online. You can just go to creativeoneadvisorsgroup.com and use the contact form if you'd like a question featured on a future show. Of course, you can also carry these questions in a one-on-one basis with David and the team at Creative One Advisors Group. Again, at the website, your chance to schedule and get in touch, creativeoneadvisorsgroup.com, or call 913-317-1414. All the contact info is in the description of today's show, so find it there. David, great breakdown on everything today. Really appreciate your insight, and we'll look forward to talking to you in a few weeks.
Yeah, who knows what the news cycle is going to bring us over the next couple, so we'll have something interesting to talk about in 2 weeks. I know that.
We've got 2 weeks worth to make something happen, undo it, make something else happen, maybe even undo that before it comes around. So they'll keep you on your toes.
It will be exciting.
I think so. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be here for you again on the next episode. Come back and see us on Cover Your Assets, KC.
Creative One Advisors Group has been proudly serving families in the Kansas City metropolitan area since 2003. Over the years, we've evolved to help meet the needs of our clients, becoming KC Financial Advisors in 2010. In November 2021, our advisory business was acquired by Creative One Wealth LLC, C1W, and in January 2025, we officially adopted the name Creative One Advisors Group. Previous episodes were recorded under the branding of KC Financial Advisors, which has since been rebranded as Creative One Advisors Group. Any references to KC Financial Advisors should now be understood as referring to Creative One Advisors Group. Investment advisory services are offered through Creative One Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. Creative One Advisors Group is a DBA of Creative One Wealth. Insurance services are offered through licensed insurance professionals. Investment advisory services are provided in accordance with the fiduciary duty of care and loyalty that includes putting your interest first and disclosing conflicts. Insurance services have a best interest standard, which requires recommendations to be in your best interest. Creative One Wealth is not affiliated with or endorsed by any government agency and does not provide tax, legal, or estate planning advice or services. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss. Neither asset allocation nor diversification can ensure a profit or guarantee against losses. None of the information contained herein shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit any offer to buy a security or any insurance product. Insurance product guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing company. The Creative One family of companies includes Creative One Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor, Creative One Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor, and Creative One Marketing LLC. These companies share common ownership. Additional details regarding advisory services are available in our firm's ADV Part 2A and Form CRS.